Hi everyone, my name is Shauna in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my best books of 2021 video. These are going to be books that I read in the year 2021. They're going to be only 5-star reads and they're not going to include rereads, which I didn't have many rereads this year. I'm going to be starting off with the ones that I have physically and then going to the ones that I have as ebooks, which there is a surprising amount that I have as ebooks. I don't normally read very many ebooks. However, I went on sort of like a requesting spree on NetGalley in about March, I want to say, maybe it was February. So I have so many NetGalley arcs I've been trying to get through, and surprisingly a lot of them were actually really good. It's been a bit of a weird reading year for me. I feel like I've been more critical of the books that I've been reading, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I feel like I've been branching away from books that I normally read, finding that I'm enjoying a lot of romance this year as opposed to normally fantasy and dystopian, which is what I mainly read. And I made a 2021 most anticipated releases at the start of this year. Most of the ones that I talked about in that video were ones that were not that great or ones that just didn't make it onto my favorites list. So this is going to be a bit of a weird list. Some of these you'll recognize because I've talked about them before, some will be completely brand new. I hope that you find this video interesting. Let's crack on into this. Starting off with The Black Flamingo by Dina Todd. This is a book about a boy who sort of doesn't feel like he fits in, he doesn't know his place in the world, and then he discovers drag. And drag sort of helps him find a place to fit into the world more. I really enjoyed this one. It is written in verse. It is so good. I flew through this one. Definitely would consider rereading this one. It's emotional and packs a punch, but it's really, really good, and I really enjoyed it, and it is one of my favorites. And obviously I'm not going in any order between favorite to least favorite, because out of all of these I can't choose a specific favorite. I love them all so much. Next up is Beautiful Redemption by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. This is the final book in the Beautiful Creatures series, and it is the only one I gave 5 stars out of the whole entire series. So the thing with the series is I have a love-hate relationship with it, but by the final book I really was enjoying this series. I'd almost recommend reading the series just to get to this final book, because this final book was phenomenal. It sort of took a series that was like somewhat like traditional, like normal young adult paranormal / fantasy, and this book sort of took it in a different direction away from this typical fantasies that you'd read, and I really enjoyed this one. And this one made me want to immediately pick up the spin-off series, which I did. However, with the spin-off series, the only one I liked with the spin-off series, I mean, it's only a like 2-book story with maybe 2 novellas, maybe 1 novella, but the only one in that series that I really enjoyed was Dangerous Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. Dangerous Creatures follows Link and Ridley from the original Beautiful Creatures series and adds in a ton of new characters. It is so entertaining, so fun, but the second book was a massive flop. I'll say that. I don't like calling things a flop. I don't like being like, oh, my video didn't get views, so it's a flop. Like, I don't like that language, but there's no other way to describe the second book and how disappointing it was. But Dangerous Creatures is definitely ranking up there as one of my favorites of the year. And I actually like Dangerous Creatures better than the Beautiful Creatures series. I'm just so mad that Dangerous Deception, the second book, was such a big disappointment for me. Another favorite of 2021 was The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. Ooh, getting a little bit of the ring light glare on there. I feel like I've talked about this one a lot on my channel so far. It is a like rom-com-y type book with queer representation, OCD representation, panic attack representation. It is a phenomenal book. I flew through it. It's very spicy, so just like keep that in mind. Spicy meaning obviously adult content, but yeah, I really enjoyed The Charm Offensive, and it is definitely one of my favorites of the year, and I am sort of craving a reread, but I don't reread often, so it's weird that I'm craving a reread of this, but maybe I'll reread it at some point in the next year or two. Next up is another queer book, and that is Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Osman. Heartstopper is one of my favorite series. It is a graphic novel series. It's so cute. This is Volume 2. I read Volume 2 back in January or February. I read Volume 1 back in 2020, and I really enjoy this series. I have Volume 3 and I'm hoping to read that at the start of the next year. Next favorite is Scythe by Neil. Oh, this lighting is really bad. I'm so sorry about that. I'm trying to use my ring light, but it keeps like making my face completely pale if I adjust the lighting. Like, ugh. This is not a good way to wrap up my 2021 year with bad lighting. But anyways, Scythe is my next favorite book from 2021. This one is phenomenal. It made me remember why I fell in love with dystopian novels, specifically young adult dystopian novels. This one is so creative and clever. It's unlike any other dystopian novel that I've read, so I highly recommend everyone read Scythe. It does seem very dark in content matter. I mean, it's dealing with death like all the time, but it doesn't like drag you down. Like, it's not a depressing read, but it is a very entertaining and fun read, despite what the content makes it seem like. And then my last of my favorites, which I'm sure the ring light is gonna do a glare on. Yep, it is. Eclipse by Stephanie Meyer. I love the Twilight series. They have not been all 5 stars, if I'm being quite honest, because I read The Short Second Life of Bruce Tanner, and that was not a 5-star for me. However, this one was a 5-star for me. It was really good. The series is somewhat problematic in some parts, but I still really enjoy it, and I think it's okay to like problematic works as long as you call out the elements that aren't acceptable in the book, which is how I feel about the Twilight series. So those were all my favorite books that I own physically, so now on to my favorite books that I read as ebooks or audiobooks. Gotta pull out my laptop for this. Oh, looking at this list, there's actually one that I need to go grab that's physical that I have. I will be right back. Okay, so this one that I almost forgot to mention is A Lot Like Adios by Alexis Daria. This is technically a sequel, but you can read it as a standalone. I read it as a standalone. This one is a very steamy romance, and it's a contemporary romance, and it's an adult romance, and I don't read contemporary adult romances very often, but I actually did really enjoy this one, and I'm really wanting to read more by this author because she writes like it's a Hallmark movie, but with steam and spice. So it's good, and it's different than what I normally read, but I actually really enjoyed it, and I really want to read more by her. Now on to ebooks and audiobooks, which there's actually surprisingly less than I thought. I've been reading, I feel like mostly ebooks this year, but for some reason, there isn't as many that have made it onto my favorites list. So starting off with Trials of Death by Darren Shan. This is part of the Circuit du Freak series, and it is my favorite in the series. I really like the idea in any sort of novel where there's like trials or hardships that the people have to face, but like not hardships in terms of like, oh my gosh, like my relative died. I mean hardships in terms of like specific tasks that they have to complete that are challenging. Like think of Goblet of Fire, how there's like the Triwizard Tournament, like the different things that they have to do. With Hercules, there's like the different trials that he has to go through. Like there's all these different trials in media, and I always really enjoy it when there's like these specific trials or tasks that these people have to complete, and there was those in Trials of Death, which I really enjoyed and I found really entertaining. Circuit du Freak is a vampire series, and each book is pretty short, and I've been listening to it on Audible because there's some books on Audible that you can listen to without like using your credits for it, and the whole Circuit du Freak series is one of them. It's a very long series, and I'm thinking about finishing it next year, but like it's really long. Let me look how many books are in the Circuit du Freak series, because I know that it's quite a lot. Yeah, there's 12 books in the Circuit du Freak series, and I read through 7 of them using audiobooks, so maybe I'll do the next 5 next year. Which it seems like a lot, but they go by really quickly because they're so enjoyable. Like I could finish 1 per day. It's just so good, and I just like lay there in the dark in my room just listening to it, which I never really got into audiobooks this year until I was forced to get into audiobooks because my doctor said, well, you can lay in the dark, sleeping, listening to audiobooks, or listening to music, and those are your only options. And so I chose audiobooks because I wanted to be productive with my time. So yeah, that's sort of how I got into audiobooks and Circuit du Freak. My next favorite book is Rogue Untouched by Elisa Whitney. This is one that I accessed through NetGalley. I loved Rogue. I watched the cartoons when I was younger for X-Men, and I've watched all the X-Men movies except for Dark Phoenix, which Rogue isn't even in that one, so it's not like I'm missing out too much by not watching it. I mean, I'm obviously gonna watch it, just it's not like super high up on my list right now. Like there's more recent releases that I want to watch. But anyways, Rogue Untouched is really enjoyable, and it gives sort of a backstory to Rogue without like the whole X-Men being there. Like there's other mutants, and it's really fun, and I really hope that it gets a sequel. I highly recommend this one if you like X-Men. It's okay if you're not familiar with X-Men because you don't have to have a background knowledge of X-Men and Marvel to enjoy Rogue Untouched. And if you do have that background knowledge, like it's just another fun like introduction to Rogue and a fun backstory to her, and I really enjoyed Rogue Untouched. Next favorite book is Darling by Kay Ankrum, another one that I accessed via NetGalley. Darling is a Peter Pan retelling that is a thriller. It's very dark, very creepy, but I really enjoyed it. There is lots of representation in it, and it is so cleverly written, and all the characters are so much fun to read about. And I bought more of Kay Ankrum's books because I really enjoyed her writing. I currently have The Wicker King sitting on my shelves that I hope to read next year, and I also got, I think, a novella for The Wicker King that was free on the Kindle store. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to reading more from Kay Ankrum because she is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. And my final favorite book for 2021 is Cheer Up, Love and Pom Poms. It is by Crystal Fraser and Oscar O. Jupiter. I feel bad for not mentioning Oscar all the time in my videos when I'm talking about who wrote Cheer Up. It's because Goodreads, when I search it briefly, only pulls up one author because I don't know, it just does that. I really enjoyed Cheer Up, Love, and Pom Poms. It's a sapphic romance graphic novel that has to do with cheerleading, and there's trans rep in it. It is so cute. I flew through it, and I really hope to get a physical copy of it at some point in the future. So that was all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. Next Tuesday's video will be my 2022 reading goals, which there is quite a lot of them. I'm sort of having more ambitious reading goals than last year. I hope all of you had a great reading year this year, and I can't wait to see what new favorite books I discover in 2022. Until next time, goodbye!